Welcome, everybody. We are at the Monday Mindset, and we are so glad that you have joined us today. I know for those of us in the US, we have just celebrated. Hopefully, you were able to celebrate Thanksgiving like Kevin and I have. And I know it's probably looked way different this year than in years in the past. But Kevin, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. So, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was terrific. Got to unwind for a little bit, disconnect for a little bit, be with family, and just rest. We talk a lot about rest as it relates to leadership and performance, and it's just good. I love holidays where we can just disconnect and be okay disconnecting and just spending time with family and being present with each other. So it was a good weekend. How about you?
Mine was great too. I had two separate little celebrations, and on Thursday, it was a gorgeous day here in Oklahoma, and so we had a quick brunch and then went out hiking and just enjoyed the outdoors. I think we all needed that, and again, like you, we were disconnected from our stuff, and so that was awesome. And then on Saturday, my family has a tradition where we do seafood. We don't do turkey, and we love seafood around here. So we had crab legs, shrimp, scallops. It was really yummy, and so great time with the family. So really
note to self, I need to be an honorary member of the Raider family.
Absolutely. Come on, bring your whole crew. We'd love it.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm excited today because we have a fantastic guest. And so I'm not going to ruin it. I'm going to let you introduce her. And in fact, I'm going to move out of the way. I'm going to get off the screen here. I'll be in the background kind of watching the chat. And so those of you who are joining, whether you're here on LinkedIn or Facebook or on the Giant platform, we really want to hear from you today. Our guest is fabulous. You're going to love her. And so if you have questions for her or just want to chat in some way, do that. And then toward the end, Kevin, if you'll have me come back on, we'll discuss some of those things. So here Absolutely. I go. Go for it and introduce our guest.
All right, friends, what a treat. I'm super fired up today. We've got my friend Holly Moore. Let me tell you a little bit about Holly before we dive in and hear all of her insights about leadership, about mindset. So Holly, she's just been changing the world for years inside of companies, large companies, small companies, publicly traded companies, nonprofit companies, healthcare. She's been a little bit of everything and decided I can change companies or I can change the world. And so now she's changing the world, consulting with leaders, consulting with companies, unlocking the potential of organizations. She's one of our giants based out of Atlanta. I love following her travels when we used to get to travel as she travels around and impacts companies and leaders, genuinely changing the world, because we know that if we can change leaders, we can change teams. We change teams, we change companies, we change the world. And Holly is one of the best that I know at doing that. Holly Moore, thanks for showing up. And I forgot to say, she currently runs Hollis Consulting. So that matters. I want to make sure we know what she's currently doing. So Holly, welcome.
Thanks, Kevin, and happy belated Thanksgiving. It's good to be talking to you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So that was the kind of sort of professional version. But Holly, give us the 90-second version of who Holly Moore is and what you're doing.
Well, Kevin, it's you kind of mentioned I've had a wide variety in my career, but I often will say it this way, Kevin. When I started out in my career, I feel like there's this consistent theme of I love to take broken things and help them get whole and bring them to health. And there have been times when I was in the healthcare industry that happened in a very literal sense. But then a lot of my leadership roles and now what I do through my company, Hollis Strategies, is really bringing health to individuals, health to teams, health to organizations, because you and I both know when people can communicate well, when they can have healthy relationships, that forms the foundation for everything else to happen. And so I just love getting to do that. And so now I have a lot of large for-profit companies, still do a lot of work in the nonprofit space just because I really have a heart for people that are working in that arena. And so I just love what I do. And obviously Giant is a big part of that because I so believe in Giant's philosophy of leader development. The tools and assessments that we have just been really, really helpful as I do my client work.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So excited to have you and chat a little bit about mindset. And let's start with you, right? So we'll kind of go from you to then working with companies and leaders. But doing the work that you do, having the impact that you have, doesn't happen on accident, right? Like you don't just show up and get to do the work that you do and get to change the leaders that you change in organizations. There's a certain, and for those watching, running your own thing is difficult, right? There's challenges in everything, right? Whether you're working in the corporate world or you're running your own firm, like there's just challenges and it's difficult. And it requires a certain mindset for you to be able to wake up each morning and not just be excited about what you do, because that's part of the equation, but to have the mindset, have the grit, have the commitment to go build something special and something unique and something impactful. So what do you do to get into the right mindset? Is there a routine? Is there a practice that you've kind of developed over the years to work on your own mindset?
Yeah. So this is what I'd say, Kevin. I'd say I have honed it through the years, and there were times when I didn't do it well at all. So those of you that are familiar with 5 Voices, if you're familiar in our giant world, I am a creative connector pioneer. So I am just wired that I want to make things better, right? Mm-hmm. So I can just get up every day. What do we need to do? What does the future look like? How do we make things better? And I think sometimes that pioneer creeps up in there. I love a to-do list, love checking things off. And I'd say early in my career, Kevin, probably the mistake that I would make would be getting up in the morning and just charging into the day and just so wanting to get things done, push. And so I think probably one of the things that I've learned just through mentors that I've had, as we often say in Giant, learning how to know myself to be able to lead myself well, is really thinking through my preparation. And so for me, the start of the week, it is some block of time that I have on Sundays. I'm sure there's lots of leaders that do this, but I would just reiterate, there is a period of time for me on Sunday that I'm sitting and I'm looking at the calendar for the whole week. And I'm just kind of mentally getting my head around, okay, what's going on this week? How can I be fully present? Of the days that I'm doing work in this week, what's going to be more of an intense day? What's a less intense day? How do I want to manage my energy throughout the week? What am I going to need to do to really be fully present, fully productive throughout the week, and just kind of getting my head around that? And I just know when I will have the practice at some point on Sunday to do that, then I just don't start out on Monday and I'm just running and flying without thought. And then second of all, I've got to spend a little bit of time every single morning kind of in a personal devotion time for myself. But also, Kevin, again, the more that I just sit and look at the day and I just look through the calendar and I'm just mentally walking through, what does today look like, right? So even here we are on Monday. I had some things I had to take care of this morning. I knew you and I were going to spend time together. I know what I've got stacked this afternoon. When I can do a mental walkthrough of the day, then it's just going to help me feel more prepared. And again, that just kind of reduces the anxiety piece. So I would say that is a really big thing. And I think the other thing that I would mention, Kevin, is and I know you really shared this as well. Throughout my career, and even now in the business that I run, all of it is relationships. So I do really ask myself on a weekly basis and every single day, the mindset of, okay, what investments am I making today in the relationships that are important? And am I thinking about that? And am I being really, really intentional about it? So for example, today I thought I want to be really present in my time with Kevin. I want to have a great conversation with him. And later this afternoon, one of my clients, I am helping them do a performance review for someone that's on their team. And I have really wanted to think through, how am I communicating that? How can this person feel very invested in relationally, even when we've got some hard news to deliver? So I guess I would just to summarize, it would be mentally walking through what I'm doing, feeling like I'm getting prepared. And then secondly, what is my mindset? What is the relationship aspect of the day going to look like? And what am I intentionally doing in that area?
Yeah, I love that. And for a lot of reasons. One, it's this idea of being intentional versus accidental, right? Like if you think about your day, you're surprised about what happens during the day. You're not going to be caught off guard or taken out. It's like, no, I knew these things were coming. And life happens, right? There are always some kind of surprises, but you can minimize those by just taking 10 minutes right? We're not talking about taking like noon to 8 p.m. on Sunday. Just take a little bit of time and think, okay, what does tomorrow look like? What is Tuesday? Okay, where do I need a lot of energy? Where and not that you're not going to give your best certain days, but certain days just take different amounts of energy. And so being aware of that makes you kind of mentally and physically prepared for the week. And the same thing each morning. It's like, what do I have on the docket? And then to think through the people. And I think that's actually really important because we get so focused on us. And it's a great way to just not have a very good life. I'll be honest. Like it just, you focus on all your problems, all your issues, but thinking, and I've got this with this client. How can I make sure I serve them today? How can I make sure I'm not just like billing them today? How can I invest in them today? How can I serve them today? And I think that's so critical. So I love that you do that. So and I think, those are just good practices to put into place in general. And if those who are listening, just start. Right? That doesn't mean you're going to nail it every Sunday or every day, but just start and you'll find a rhythm and eventually that'll become a habit. Right. So don't put a burden of like, man, advice, Holly, sure. I'm going to prepare every morning for the day.
Yeah.
That's okay. But you can work up to that. So start with a couple days a week and you'll get better. But I think this, 2020 obviously has just been a really interesting year to say the least. And so all this mindset stuff, it's really easy to talk about when things are going well. It's really easy to talk about when business is flying, teams are doing well. And then 2020 hits and it's like everything is up in the air. How is business going to go? How is life? How are relationships going to go? So how have you tried to maintain a healthy and positive mindset in the midst of COVID? Because you see people, and Tracy and I have talked a lot about this force of negativity and anxiety that we're all kind of being swept in if we're not careful. Right? You get consumed with social media, you get consumed with the news, and it's good to be aware of things, but you don't have to be consumed by things. And people are kind of being consumed by this negativity and this fear, and it's creating divides, right? Physically and emotionally and mentally. So how have you tried to be intentional with that mindset in the midst of just a crazy year?
Great question. And I'm going to share something with you that's been really helpful. I can take zero credit for it, but one of my mentors, oh my gosh, Kevin, probably for the past like 14, almost 15 years, David Salyers, former Chick-fil-A executive, now has his own company, and he's just amazing. And Kevin, we were talking, and I love this. He talks to me a lot about perspective. And I know we all know that word, but this is David's definition of perspective, or what he says. He says to me all the time, he goes, Holly, perspective is the only thing in the world that can radically transform the results we get without altering a single element of our environment. So I'm going to say that again. Perspective is the only thing in the world that can radically transform the results we get without altering a single element in our environment. So I think that this year, listen, Kevin, there's been a whole lot of things that you and I, even if we wanted to alter the element in our environment, we can't. You and I have no control over COVID, when we're going to get a vaccine, politics, nothing. And so I think a lot of it, Kevin, is this intentionality that you were talking about. Is I have got to really, really think each day, what is my perspective? And I don't mean to sound too cheesy or pie in the sky, but I actually really believe that every single morning I can choose my perspective. Yep. I choose, and I can choose how am I going to think about things. And that doesn't mean that I'm being unrealistic or I'm just being Pollyanna. Although I do love that movie. There's a really good life lesson in that movie of how you choose to see things. But I can choose. So for example, I might say, I'm such a people person. I want to stay connected with people. Okay, well, my perspective could be, well, Holly, you're gonna have to use that creative brain that God has given you, and you're gonna have to come up with some really creative ways of how do you deepen relationships when you can't be with somebody in person. Or Holly, you have really rested on your ability. I've done, like you, Kevin, I've done training and speaking for 20 years of my career. Well, it was, Holly, you got to up your virtual presentation skills. You need to learn some technology. You need to learn that. Are you going to choose to embrace that? Or am I willing to take some extra time and think, what are some trends that I'm seeing? What do I need to observe? What do I need to study? Are there some alterations that I need to make in the way that I'm delivering what I do for my clients? And Kevin, again, I know people talk about it a lot, but I so believe in the power of practicing gratitude. And so thinking through, how am I doing my work? What am I learning? How am I being intentional? How am I choosing gratitude? Kevin, those are all things, that is my perspective. So my perspective, I can't blame that on anybody else. That is Holly. And you and I were talking before. I mean, right now, Kevin, 2.5 weeks ago, my world turned upside down. I was in California with a client. I got a call and my mom had a stroke, and it has completely upended our world. And I mean, literally this morning at 7:30, I was in her hospital room, and she and I were talking about, are we going to choose to have the right perspective? Are we going to choose to take this day by day? And I have literally been spending time with her in a hospital, us thinking through every single day, what are the things we're grateful for? How can we keep a positive perspective as we go through this? So I guess I'm just saying, I'm not talking to all of you and make it sound, I'm not trying to give you an easy answer. I'm telling you that 4 hours ago, I was sitting in a hospital room with a very ill mother, and I am practicing perspective and gratitude today. And I just think it's a powerful thing.
Amen. If people watching this, if you would just rewatch like the last 5 minutes, probably every day, your life would be a whole lot better. Because truthfully, like, it's, you know, I had a mentor of mine on this idea of perspective, and Tracy and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Like, it's the one thing you control. I can't control the circumstances. I can't, right? I can't control the economy, can't control COVID, can't control politics, can't control sickness, can't control anything except my perspective. And so he always says your circumstances plus your perspective determine your experience.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and usually that perspective comes after, right? We know that hard seasons make us better, but we usually learn that like after we look back, like, man, that was a hard season, but that was a really sweet season. Like, that was a season of growth. And to have that perspective now, and to honor you, but also your mom in the midst of it, like, you know, whatever we're facing, it's not as hard as what your mom is facing. Wow. And she's like, no, I'm going to practice gratitude. Right. It's like, it's not Pollyanna. It's not fake optimism. It's not being ignorant or naive. And because people hear that, like, well, that just sounds, well, okay, well, what's the alternative? Right? To be negative, to be anxious, to be stressful, is like, is that the choice you're going to make? Because that's a choice, right? It's like, you can choose perspective, or you can, like, and be healthy. And again, positive doesn't mean naive, but say like, no, I see all this stuff, but I've got a 30,000 foot view, and I can see, like, I can choose how I show up. And you've seen the people who've operated this year that have gotten better, right? Like, I've had coaching groups where people who, like, their industries are being devastated, and they're saying, I'm going to take 10 weeks to work on me. Right. Well, that's perspective, right? Because they can say, well, it's hard and I'm stressful and I'm overworked. No, I'm going to work on me, because I know if I get better, my family gets better, my team gets better. And so that perspective thing, it's such a, like, if people could get anything, is that you own your perspective, right? You have 100% control. And Tracy and I talked maybe last week, 2 weeks ago, like, that's the difference between a vulnerable mindset and an invincible mindset. Too many are vulnerable to their circumstances. And so you could have easily, and the situation with your mom is really, really difficult. So, like, people, like, let's not gloss over, like, it's hard. It's hard in a normal year. It would be a hard situation, but you add the stuff of 2020 on top of it, and it's just layers and layers of difficulty. But you could have easily said, oh, there's 2020 for you. It's like another kick in the face, and just gotten really negative. And I'm sure there are moments, right? We're all human. We have moments where we feel that, and that's okay too, to have those moments. But to say, like, nope, I'm not going to live in that. I'm going to choose gratitude, and I'm going to choose perspective. I just think that's, again, that's such a critical thing. And it can sound cheesy, it can sound whatever, but perspective is such a powerful thing in our lives. It
really is, Kevin. And I'm glad you pointed out, we're not, it's not a fake optimism, and it's not denying reality. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I have done, I think that sometimes in the past, I've tended to be a little bit of a loner. I don't know if anybody listening to this, especially as a female leader that has had a business career, I think there was a part of me that at times I've kind of thought, well, I need to exhibit strength. And as a female, if I'm more vulnerable, exhibit exhibit that? Is it going to be perceived as a weakness? And I think where I am in my life right now is, we've got to be able to let other people in. And so part of the way that we keep a perspective is we've got to have safe people around us where we actually can be very real. So just keeping it real here. Before I got on the phone with you, I called one of my best friends, and we took about 10 minutes, and I was just able to kind of decompress of some things that happened this morning. And what she and I talk a lot about is if we're angry about something, if we're disappointed about something, Kevin, I think it's very powerful that we are actually able to articulate what we're feeling. We need to be able to say, I am angry about this, or if something's happened in a business, I am disappointed that my employee did this. I am angry that we didn't get this result. But there's something if I can at least name it and articulate it, then I can say, okay, that is the reality, but now I can choose my perspective about it. And I think that, Kevin, is the difference between us, just you and I just sounding like, well, y'all don't even really live in the real world. I'm going,
right.
We've got to articulate it and say, this is the issue. This is what I'm struggling with. This is hard. I'm going to identify it, but then I'm going to say, this is the perspective that I choose to have about it.
That's right. And to have someone, again, like we're not meant to travel through life alone. Right. And so you have moments where like, you're not supposed to carry that burden, and you need someone else, that you can kind of not unload on, but just get it out. Right. So get it out of your head. And for that to have someone, a trusted confidant who will stir up belief in life. And you say, hey, Holly, it's all right. I get it. It's okay to feel that way. Here's what we're going to do about it. Right. So to have those people that you can lean on, who can speak that truth into you, who are not just your gossip buddy, but it's like, no, I'm going to this person because I know they're gonna fight for my high school. They're gonna allow me to like get this stress out, not judge me for it, and then but when I get off the phone call, I know I'm gonna have the right state of mind because of this relationship that I have with them. And I would do the same for them. And so to have those people in your life that you can lean on to your left and to your right, in those times, because it's not supposed to be a solo game. So now let's talk. Kevin, go ahead.
Mindset is a team sport, is the way I would say it. Mindset is a team sport. I don't think we can keep the proper mindset thinking that we're going to do it all on our own inside our head. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so now let's talk a little bit about how you try to deal with clients and leaders and teams, and how do you see mindset shaping the actions and the cultures from a leader perspective? We got healthy mindset, unhealthy mindset, liberator mindset, all these things. How critical do you think it is for a leader to have the right mindset as they walk in? Well, when they used to walk into the doors to their team, now when they walk into a Zoom call every day with their team.
Right. Yeah. Well, you and I are very much aligned on that, because I would say, it is, in my opinion, the mindset is the deal breaker, right? It's the make or break decision that we make. So when I was thinking about this, Kevin, I think there's almost 4 things that I would say that I kind of walk through with a leader. And I would say, first of all, when I'm with a client, I always want to start from a place of listening, because sometimes that client needed a safe person to be able to talk. And there is something about when someone will listen and empathize. And I just think empathy goes a long way in preparing somebody to be able to take a hard look at themselves, to know themselves, to lead themselves. But if I'm coming from a place of a lot of empathy for, this is where you are, this is what you've been dealing with, I'm going to hold space for you to talk to me about that. I spent an hour with someone last week that's been really having some challenging situations at work. And sometimes you just need to go, I just need to get it out, and we need to listen. But then I think from that, what I'd like to do is, back in years ago in my corporate career, one of our core values as a company was called manage by fact. And it has stuck with me for so long that one of the ways I'm able to keep a healthy perspective is I want to manage by fact. So sometimes after I've listened and there might be a lot of emotion, I feel this hurt, can you believe this happened? Then we almost need to stop and say, okay, hold on a second. Now let's start gathering data and let's literally process this situation before we get completely carried away by emotion and conjecture. What is actually going on? So with the client last week, it was, let's spend time, and I want you to be able to clearly articulate what are the 2 or 3 things that are really the root issue here. Like, let's name it and let's manage by fact. And then I think thirdly, creating some kind of a plan, Kevin. I think for so much of us, we at least say, okay, these are some things that I can do to get a better perspective. And this is how I might approach a conversation with someone at work. And this is my plan for self-care in the middle of this. Sometimes even just writing down some kind of a plan, to me, it helps just reduce the anxiety. And if I can listen, manage by fact, and get a plan, then I think, Kevin, at that point, if I'm talking to them about, we got to have a healthy perspective. You're in control of your perspective. You can change everything with the right perspective. I haven't hit them cold from that. By the time we start talking about their perspective, there's been listening, empathy, fact gathering, a plan. And then I just find that clients can lean in and say, you know what, I really can own my perspective. And so I have found that is really helpful.
Friends, that was a masterclass in how to have a difficult conversation and how to hold someone accountable to getting better, right? Listen. What was it? Listen.
Manage by fact.
Manage by fact, which I love that statement. Like, that's critical, right? Like, manage by fact, not feeling. So listen, manage by fact, and have a plan. And I think oftentimes busyness is an enemy of perspective. And we just have too many things going on. And so we don't listen. And I think especially in our work coaching leaders, like, leaders have such a burden that people don't realize, right? Before they ever walk in the door to interact with their team, they've got so many other issues from a larger company perspective, depending on their industry. It could be national or global issues, could be state and local issues. And then they got to come in and interact with their team. And we just don't realize. We're like, I just need more time with Jeff. Like, well, look at Jeff's day. Like, yes, you probably do, but look at Jeff's day, realize what he's thinking about before he ever sees you. So consider that person first. So listening and having empathy for what a leader is dealing with. Managing by fact that's massive, right? Because how many times especially as feelers. So I'm a connector creative pioneer. So feeler by wiring, and everything hits personally, right? Which is my nature, but it's also a choice. And so it's like, no, I can choose to not take that personally and choose to believe like they had the best intent and just see it as a fact, not as a feeling. Mm-hmm. And then have a plan. If we would, again, busyness, I think, is the enemy of all of this. Because, like, I don't have time to think through how I'm going to talk to this person. I think, well, you're gonna spend that time somewhere, right? Either on the front end, considering how to do it well, or on the back end, dealing with the drama of doing it poorly because you didn't take the time on the front end. So I think that's really critical. I love that. All right, Tracy, do we have any questions coming in?
Yeah. Well, Lorna has joined us from Dubai. Hi, Lorna. Thanks for joining. And she just said
we've gone global. Amazing.
Yeah, I love that. Lorna, I want to come and visit you. Dubai is on my bucket list.
Oh, I'd love it too. That's really cool. So thanks for joining, Lorna, and the rest of you. We do have a couple of questions coming in. Let's see. Let me get back to where I was. I got so engrossed in your manage by fact. That's really good. I'm going to be tucking that one away. I love that. So Holly, let's see. Kelsey says, Holly, you seem so relationship focused. I'm more of a task focused person. How do I make sure that relationships are what drives me? That's great.
So I so appreciate that. And I will say I am relationship focused, but as I mentioned, you guys, I love my to-do list. I am that person that will sometimes write something down just for the satisfaction of crossing off. So I totally get that. But I think this is what I would say. If you think about in the giant world, if you're familiar with this, Kelsey, we talk about the 5 metrics of a high-performing team: communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capacity. And so if you are task-oriented, you're probably thinking, I want to hit my goals. I want us to hit our objectives. What are our KPIs? What are we getting done? Then maybe this would help is if you would think, strong, healthy relationships with people that know how to communicate with each other and know how to work really well together. That is the shortest path to you actually getting all those tasks done that you want to get done. And so what has happened sometimes, I know for me, when I get under a lot of stress, then sometimes I cannot do relationships well. Please don't feel like I get this right every single day. Sometimes when we get under stress, it almost feels like a stress reliever to feel like we did get some tasks done. When my mom had her stroke a couple of weeks ago, I came home and did loads of laundry because it just made me feel like, okay, I actually got something was dirty, now it's clean, I got it done. So I totally understand the task, but I just have found if I can really think, relationships and communication are the vehicle that are going to allow me to get even more tasks done and accomplish more, then it helps me prioritize that. So hopefully that'll help a little.
No, I think so. That's great. Okay, another one here. Jennifer says, when your day feels like it's getting out of control, say in the middle of the day, what do you do to get back on track?
Okay, that's an awesome question. So let's talk about today. So today I was in the hospital. Some hard things happened. I drove home in the middle of the day to talk to Kevin. Okay. Mm-hmm. So here's what I did. When I got in the car, I just kind of took some deep breaths and I kept it quiet. I didn't turn on the radio or anything. And then I called my really good friend and I said, hey, I'm getting ready to do a work thing. Can you just talk to me for about 5 minutes? I just need to kind of decompress. I want to tell you what happened. And she just listened. It wasn't a long conversation. And then when I hung up the phone, I still had about 5 or 10 minutes till I got home. And I just did some deep breathing. I kept quiet. I processed what I had talked about with my friend. And so sometimes I will just say this, sometimes you just need to give yourself a timeout. So you might give your kids a timeout. Sometimes you just need to give yourself a timeout because you're not going to do anybody any good if you just keep working at a heightened level of anxiety. So even if you just back off for 15 or 20 minutes, just to kind of slow your breathing down, slow your heart rate down. And one other thing I'll just mention, Jennifer, is sometimes I need to stop and just journal a little bit. Sometimes if I can get what's hurting me or I'm frustrated about out on paper, that sometimes is a release for me. And the other thing is sometimes if I'm frustrated or something's going on, then as I'm entering back into work, I want to pick a work task that I can do for the next hour that feels energizing and life-giving. So I'm relational, Kevin's relational, I love Tracy. So this was a great thing for me to do for an hour because this is life-giving to me. Now later this afternoon, I'm going to have to do other kinds of work. So do some self-care. And when you start back to work again, if you can focus on something that's life-giving and energizing, I think that could help.
That's great. Okay, here's a personal question.
Okay.
I'm asking this for the world because I think there are people out there thinking, well, Holly, well, Kevin, they're just those happy-go-lucky people. They were just born that way. It's just their personality. I'm more of an Eeyore. I kind of don't see the world the same as they do. Of course, it's easy for them to have a great mindset. What do you say to that?
So what I would say is y'all should actually know this about me. My precious mom that I love, there are times that she says, Holly, you are a glass half empty person. Okay. There are times that I can just get in my head. So everything I'm talking to you guys about today, it is because I have spent a lot of time with mentors, a lot of time studying, a lot of times. I think also if we've got any fellow creatives here on the call with us, I remember Steve Cochran telling me one time, it's like, Holly, you are such a deep thinker. It's like you brainstorm with yourself. And so I can really get in my head. So what I am learning about perspective and healthy mindset, it has come with Tracy with a lot of intentionality to know myself and lead myself and learn how to practice it. To learn how to choose my perspective, to choose what I'm going to think about. And because it doesn't always come natural.
Yeah. So you're saying this is an acquired skill.
I am saying it is an acquired
absolutely skill. Yes, I absolutely agree. Well, that's great. Those are the questions we had. This is fabulous. So if you're listening and you're hearing some language that you're like, what are they talking about? Creative? What is this? Yeah. So we have a platform here giant.tv. Holly, tell us your affiliate code.
I will. So it's giant.tv/Hollis Strategies. So HOLLIS Strategies. And yeah, I mean, I love for people to feel like they can go out, take the assessment. There's so many free resources out there that can really help you in your leadership journey. And it's certainly, Tracy, you know, my introduction to Giant was I was a customer. I was in one of our executive coaching programs. I was working a full-time job and I needed some help in my leadership. I wanted to grow and develop. And so I spent an entire year getting executive coaching myself. And it was so transformative for me that I always like to tell people, I'm not telling you something that I think works. I'm telling you something that I actually did and then implemented it with the team and with other people. And
that's right. Yeah. So if you're listening and you go, wow, Holly, amazing, or Kevin, unbelievable. These two folks do this every day. And so, Kevin, what's your affiliate code? Giant.tv.
Giant.tv/culture wins. So again, I do a lot of stuff in the sports world, focusing on culture. So the sports division of Giant is called Culture Wins. So giant.tv/culture wins. And again, same principles, same tools, same concepts to help you get better. And same with Holly. Like I went through a year-long program with Giant and realized like this is the best thing I've like. Right. It allowed me to work on me. And to the point of mindset, it's like I'm a connector. So do I naturally have a good mindset? I think I'm naturally optimistic. But I think mindset is more than that. And for me, it came with security, right? It's like when I'm insecure, I go negative, I go vindictive, I go gossipy, I go a lot of things, concerned about a lot of outside opinions and what everybody else thinks and proving myself. But Giant kind of gave me a framework with mirrors of these tools that we use to look at myself and be secure in who I am, which allows me to have a better mindset where I'm not vulnerable to the opinions of others or to the economy or to whatever. It's like, no, I know who I am. I know why I am who I am. And I'm confident in that. Again, it's not about perfection, right? We're humans. We're going to mess up every day. But it gave us a framework to be a better version of ourselves, a confident version of ourselves, and to multiply that into other people. And so the same thing that Holly said, like it's a practice. I've generally been a happy, optimistic person. But the idea of mindset is it requires a different level of intentionality. And for us to do the work that we do, we have to have a good mindset. Like we have to, I love Joe Hill, one of our Giants, said, don't practice what you preach what you practice. And so it's like, I got to do these things. And then I'm just talking out of my experiences. I'm talking out of the things that I do every day. And then I'm learning every day, not just ideas that I think are neat,
Excellent. Yeah, it's a practice and I'd say it's a choice. So let's all choose a healthy mindset today and going forward. And Holly, this was an honor, a real honor. Thank you so much. And we'll be thinking and praying for your mom too, as well.
Thank you guys. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Kevin. Great to talk to you.
Thanks, Holly.
Everyone, thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye. See you next time.